There we go. Now we remembered to turn it on. Okay. So this is our group. We are going to be watching this, and I don't know, Jack, do you think it's going to be a normal election day now that we are all turned on and we got the...
Yeah.
Uh-huh. It's going to be normal. No sabotage. And actually, no, I mean, seriously, they were putting up fences around the White House, extra fences that you can't scale. You saw that? Yeah. Yeah, some of the places are like, yeah, I mean, already some cities have had shops and so forth attacked, so they're figuring, oh, election day, that's always kind of an interesting dynamism. So let's board up the shops so that it'll be a lot harder for people to break in and so forth. I think Boise's going to be pretty calm. I mean, yeah. Why would there be? Do you know I saw a poll that said 55% of people in America have said that today is the most stressful day in their entire life? I've seen polls of 70% saying that the amount of stress that they're feeling in the election is very high, and that's an equal number among Republicans, Democrats, and Independents. There's a lot at stake. We've got the coronavirus going on, right? We have a hotly contested election, a lot of people with very strong opinions about how that's going to play out, concerns about, one question is concern about, like, if Biden defeats Trump, will there be a normal transference of power from, one president to the other? I mean, like, let me see, the last time we had somebody who was running for office as president, running for re-election, was George H.W. Bush. He got beat by Clinton. And what happened then? He's like, I lost. Clinton took over. I mean, it was like, no big whoop. So there's concerns that there might be questions about the legitimacy of the election and making sure that the ballots are counted and which ballots are counted and are they legitimate and da-da-da-da-da. That's creating a lot of concern. Okay? I mean, it's not like have we had riots and so forth already this year? Mostly you're right. Not in Idaho. There we go. And concerns based on, you had the confluence of, like, protest, which is peaceful, and then protest that turns from not being peaceful to breaking down store windows and things like that. And so those are things that have happened in our country, and so hopefully we won't get a lot more of that today. Let's hope. But that's what some people are preparing for. And so that's what how many of you guys knew that, like, there are some shops in some cities that are boarding up because they're just like, they don't want to present themselves as an attractive target. It's like, oh, look, I've got something very powerful. And look, there's a big storefront window, and go charging in and take everything out. Like looting. That would be bad. I know. And hopefully, because Jack has expressed concern about all the poll workers in Ada County with their boxes of all of the Scantron sheets of all the people who have done that, and they're getting in their little cars after the polls have closed, and they're driving down to the Ada County Elections Office. Hopefully there will not be like a Martian invasion or any kind of weirdness or earthquake or stuff. So it's all going to be fine. Okay? So you guys ready? Right? Oh, we've got the handout for you. We've got the quiz. I pointed this out. We've got the date there. Chapter 40, quiz. You guys, next week, Tuesday, 20 points. There's the handout. Come in prepared. Yes? Yeah. And I'll put a date on that. I've actually already got some people who were, it's the same thing. 2 sentences for each of the different items on there. Turn that in. Yeah. So for chapter 39, so that'll be fine. Okay, and I'll give you a due date on that one, but usually it's the same people who are interested, and they get it turned in right away. Other people are like, it's 1 point, it's 2 points. I'll make that up by having a brilliant, accurate prediction, got them right here, in the presidential election. You still got time. Yeah, you've got until 2:45. Yeah, it's not that hard. You just get on, and you've got the very latest election predictions. So you should be in pretty good shape on that. I don't think the people who are hoping that Trump will win do not believe the predictions. They're hoping that the predictions are wrong. They're hoping that there's a lot more silent Trump voters out there that haven't been participating in the polling. So we'll see. I think Biden's going to win. Yeah. I think Biden's going to win. I think that because the margin between Biden and Trump compared to the margin between Hillary and Trump last time, it's bigger. Having said that, I'm going to keep a close eye on how things play out. But, yeah, especially in some of those like really big swing states like Pennsylvania, Florida, and so forth. Okay? But I don't know. Probably this time more than in the past, I've seen a real wide variance of predictions. We've got quite a few Trump victory predictions in here, and then most of them are coming in for Biden, as far as predictions go. Okay? All right, let's get to this. We've got this up here because we're going to have the commentary on the spies, but I want to say a few things first to wrap out our notes on detente, right? The French word that basically means a easing of tensions, less tensions between the Soviets and the United States, okay? This is going to be a period in the late 60s and early mid-70s where the United States and the Soviets are just going to be, it's not like the Cold War's gone away. I mean, good grief, the Soviets are still providing plenty of weapons for the North Vietnamese to use against United States soldiers, even as we're pulling out of Vietnam, okay? And we did ultimately see this. Do you have it in your notes? Tara, when did North Vietnam break the Paris Peace Agreement and attack South Vietnam? In what year? It's in the 1970s. Anybody have that? 1975, very good. 1975. And it was a quick defeat by the North Vietnamese of the South Vietnamese. Some of the last images that you can see are of U.S. personnel in the embassy in Saigon, the former capital city of South Vietnam, which will be renamed to Ho Chi Minh City. If you go to Vietnam today, formerly Saigon is now Ho Chi Minh City, named after Ho Chi Minh, exactly. Who was who? Yeah, he's like the founder of North Vietnamese communist state, okay? And so you literally will have like images of U.S. personnel climbing up a ladder to get on the last helicopter that flies off the coast to U.S. like aircraft carrier or other kind of warship out there. I mean, it was messed up. There were a lot of refugees that tried to make their way to the United States and other countries. It was not much fun for the South Vietnamese after that because in one sense you can say April 30th, 1975, the fall of Saigon, was that a defeat? Did we lose the Vietnam War? I thought we declared peace and left. We also, President Ford said, we'll come back if the North Vietnamese invade. Did we come back to help them out? Nope. We're like, yeah, I don't think we want to have Vietnam War 2.0. So we didn't. And of course in America, from that point on, people are like, let's have no more Vietnam. What do you mean, let's have no more Vietnams? Are we talking about getting rid of the entire country of Vietnam? No. It means let's not have any more conflicts that we're involved in that we can't win. So we're going to be pretty hesitant for a while. Well, that'll be one of the themes as we move along here as far as U.S. military force. Shift gears. Look in your notes. Write down the name of Alexander Solzhenitsyn. Do you see that in the handout? You need to because I'm not going to spell all the letters of Alexander Solzhenitsyn. Do you see those in there? Yes, okay. Alexander Solzhenitsyn was a Soviet writer, and he is going to be among a group of people known as dissidents. This is going to be taking place in the 1970s and then later into the 1980s. During the time of Stalin, I don't know, if you're a dissident, somebody who disagrees with the government and government policies and the treatment of Soviet citizens, Stalin would probably have you killed. All right? But here, during this time of detente, we have some U.S. and other reporters and people in the Soviet Union, and they're talking to people like Alexander Solzhenitsyn. He's a writer, and he criticizes the gulags. Write this down. He criticizes the gulags. Do you see this? 16. Episode 16, detente. Okay, do you see Alexander Solzhenitsyn? You can see why I didn't spell it for you, because it's very, very big. There it is, Alexander Solzhenitsyn. He will be among a number of dissidents, and he criticizes Gulag. Now, here's an interesting thing. He says it was really bad that the Soviet Union had gulags. Trenton, when did the Soviet Union have these prison work camps where millions of people were forced away from their homes to like very difficult situations, building railroads and mines and so forth? Was that during Brezhnev or Khrushchev, or was that during Stalin? It was going to be more during Stalin. So nevertheless, so it's kind of like he's criticizing what had been taking place, but of course the political party in charge of those gulags, the Communist Party, they were still in power. So the Soviets were like, what do we do about this guy? He's criticizing something that we used to do, but yeah, so yeah. Here's another thing that they were criticizing. You ready? There were many Jews living in the Soviet Union, and many of them are like, wow, we don't have much religious freedom, and if you look back over history, we haven't always been treated very well in the Soviet Union. We'd like to leave. Write it down. Emigration, not immigration, emigration with an E. Leaving the Soviet Union. Many of them wanted to leave. Mary, where do you suppose would be a top destination for Soviet Jews who wanted to leave the Soviet Union? Where do you suppose they might like to go to? Berlin? Yeah, because Germany's got a great reputation of treating Jews in the 20th century, too. No. I mean, you're cool if you're a Jew in Berlin today, but, you know, not as many Jews living in Berlin as there had been, say, before Hitler came to power. Yeah, what do you think? Israel, yeah. Top destination, Israel. If you go to Israel, you'll see that there are quite a few people who have Russian heritage, who came from the Soviet Union. They weren't being allowed to leave as much. That was another thing that Solzhenitsyn and other dissidents who are dissenting from what the Soviet Union is doing. And they also complain about, write this down, human rights. You know, the right to speak your mind, the right not to be thrown in jail because you disagree with somebody, the right not to be put into a psychiatric ward or hospital just because you disagree with the government. Did you know they used to do that? They would have somebody declared, somebody who was like a political dissenter, they would have them declared as a mentally incompetent, and they would give them round upon round upon round of heavy psychosomatic or whatever, like drugs. Yeah, I mean, it was like, that was not very nice. Yeah, basically. Why? Because they had been criticizing him. So, needless to say, some of the people in the United States, as well as these dissenters in the Soviet Union, are upset that the United States is treating the Soviet Union with less criticism during this period of détente. So here's a solution. Are you ready? This is an interesting solution. Write this down. It's a treaty. August 1st, 1975. It's called the Helsinki Treaty. Okay, you writing this down? You're coloring. You need to write it down. Yeah. The Helsinki Treaty, signed by President Ford. He's not in there for very long. He's just got the remaining part of Nixon's term, and then he runs for election in his own right, but he is not elected in 1976. Jimmy Carter's elected. The Helsinki Treaty does two things. One, and this is something that the Soviet Union and East Europe like, it recognizes the borders at the end of World War II. All right? So it's like, okay, everyone's on record agreeing that these are the borders, Poland and East Germany and West Germany and so forth. Those are all set. You can't come back in and say, oh, those borders, because they had been changed a number of times, but now it's set. Here's the thing, though, that the Soviet Union agreed to as part of the Helsinki Treaty. You ready? They will respect and protect human rights. Write that down. They promise to respect and protect human rights in their own country. President Ford says this is a big thing. He literally referred to it as a time bomb because he knew what was going on in the Soviet Union and in Eastern Europe, that things weren't going so well there, and the human rights were being mistreated. Of course, the Soviets, for their part, said, we interpret what human rights are in our own country. And if we're violating, let me check. Gosh, we're not violating human rights, so butt out. You always get countries that will like receive human rights criticism from other parts of the world and go, yeah, that's a domestic issue, butt out, right? So, I mean, how many countries are there in the world that are lining up and criticizing communist China for human rights abuses going on in communist China? Do you think most of them are? What would be one reason why a big, powerful country with a strong economy might not be open to some criticism from other countries? Yeah, they got some leverage and so forth. So, yeah, sometimes the communist Chinese are like, don't criticize us. If you've got strong economic ties, or at least China's got leverage over you. I mean, that's an issue today. How many countries in the world will feel strong enough to criticize what's going on in China? With the United States, are we a consistent critic? Well, that's where it gets interesting, because now that you got the Helsinki Treaty, you're going to have people back in Washington, Democrats in Congress, saying, oh my gosh, we need to be tougher on the Soviet Union for human rights violations. Okay? So, we'll see that. Meanwhile, here it is, during detente, the 1970s. The Soviet space program, the United States space program, they start cooperating with each other. Anybody know what is the first, thing where they come together? It's cosmonauts from the Soviet Union and astronauts from the United States. They meet in space. Yeah, and eventually we'll put together the International Space Station, where you got actually a number of countries involved in that. So that's a good thing. The spaceships are docking together. Other peaceful things going on. Students and teachers, athletes going paying visits to each other's countries, musicians and so forth. The Soviet Union's open to that. Although, let's transition to the next thing. If you're an American and you travel to the Soviet Union during the Cold War as part of one of these cultural things, because I did that as a student in 1985. I went to the Soviet Union with other college students and some college professors and some older people in the community. Is that cool? Or does that raise suspicions? Let's transition. Go ahead, write this down. This is going to be from, and I might jump ahead a little bit, this is going to be material for episode number 21, Spies. And the time period is basically the extent of the Cold War. We're not going to just talk about what's going on during this particular time period, the second phase of the Cold War. This is going to stretch it out during the entire time period. What would you think if an American college student went to the Soviet Union, went to Moscow? Does that mean that that person is working with the Soviets? Depends on what they're... Oh, there we go. You guys are like, no! If he says he's not a spy, then he's not a spy. If he says he's not been co-opted by the Soviet Union and paid off to do work, undercover work and so forth for the Soviet Union, you have to take him at his word. That's what they say. Trenton's like, no, I think you need to look a little closer. Right? How about this one? If it's an organized trip, does that give you more suspicion or less suspicion? Perhaps less. What if it's like you just go over there and you hang out for 3 months and you just sort of backpacking around the Soviet Union, if you can do that? Does that raise more or less suspicion? Maybe a little bit more. I remember when I finished college, I wanted to go to the Soviet Union. I'd studied Russian history, and I was like, this would be really cool. I had a really good friend who was also interested in going on this tour. It was going to be 3 weeks. You guys have heard about this. This is the one where I met friends in Estonia and so forth, and yada, yada, yada. Well, this one friend was a major in math and computer science, I think, one or both of the two, done a lot of so forth, was going to go applying for jobs with companies dealing with math and computer science, and that had contracts with the Defense Department, and was concerned how it might look on her resume if, as part of her resume, she had going to the Soviet Union as part of a tour. She ultimately decided that probably wasn't going to look too good, because in order to get work for a company that works for the Defense Department, you have to have high-level background security clearance. And if you got little question marks along the way, you're not going to get that clearance. And if you can't get that clearance, you're not going to get that job. So she decided, I want to make sure and get the job. So she didn't go on that particular trip. Me, What was I doing after college? I was going to Moscow, Idaho, for law school. Do you have to have security clearance to go to law school in Idaho? No. So, I mean, it was cool. I didn't have any concerns about that. And, of course, everything was really cool and so forth. But over the years, students have gone, I know, Mr. Hanson, you're really a spy. And I would always respond, of course I'm not a spy. And then they would respond, that's what a spy says, that they're not a spy. Jack, are you a spy? He seems awfully defensive. Does he seem awfully defensive? So anyway, so here's the deal. There were spies. Now, which do you suppose would be easier to do? To plant a spy, write this down, which is easier, to plant a spy in the Soviet Union from outside or to plant a spy in the United States? Why do you, agreed, why, help me out, why is it easier to get a spy in the United States for the Soviets? Because we're an open society. We are more freedom. You got people all over the place. I mean, there were times, you can write this down, there were times when we would literally try to get like Eastern Europeans and so forth and just drop them in on the shore of Eastern Europe or the Soviet Union and go, hey, good luck, go spy for us. And they would get caught. Write this down. One of the reasons that our spies and their spies get caught is because of double agents. Write it down. Double agents. Oh my gosh, they're the bane of our existence if they're working for the other side. But they really help us out really well if they're working for our side. Because one of the things that a double agent can do is tell you who are the spies for the other side. And if they're operating within your country, they're toast. You never watched a spy movie? They're a double agent. You think they're working for you, but they're actually working for the other side. Yeah, it's very dangerous, too. I mean, it's all exciting and everything. You got movies. James Bond, the original James Bond, 007. Sean Connery died. Rest in peace. Okay? Spy movies. I mean, it just goes on. They actually have some of the footage of that in the 1960s. It looks like all exciting and everything. Arnold Schwarzenegger played the role of a spy and so forth. And it is kind of exciting. Except, and it is high stakes. Write this down. What you want. Human intelligence. If you can get spies that hear things and see things and give you information and so forth, that's very important. You want to have spies who understand these things. You want to have spies in those countries as much as possible. It's going to be really hard to get spies in the Soviet Union. To the extent, write this down, to the extent that we have spies in the Soviet Union, they're typically going to be, almost always, Soviet personnel who join our side. You got that? And there are going to be a couple of key ones. And you'll look at some of the names like Oleg Penkovsky and Dmitry Polyakov. Those are going to be two that you're going to be writing about in your notes here on this episode. Okay? Penkovsky and Polyakov. You're also going to need, and you'll get more of this as time goes on, and we get like the ability to have not only just U-2 planes fly over and take pictures, but we're going to have satellite technology, sophisticated listening devices, and things like that. Okay? So the technical side of it is going to be very, very important as well. Let's go back to the early stages. Let's identify some of the key spies on both sides during different stages of the Cold War. At the very beginning, tell me, Ellie, what was the big thing that the Soviet Union was like, we have got to find out how the United States made that, because we need one of those? Yeah, nuclear bomb, okay? The Soviets, write it down, the Soviets had spies in the Manhattan Project. Not one, they had several. They had several spies operating in the Manhattan Project that the United States used to discover and develop nuclear weapons. Yes, Jack?
So, if you're prepared people from other countries have different information and access, how do they like mask their rush?
Here's the thing. So are you talking about like a spy for the United States in the Soviet Union?
Yeah.
Basically, when we get those occasions where we do get a spy operating in the Soviet Union, they're Russian. We're able to get them to work for our side. So they switch sides part way through. Yes. Yeah, let me give you some names. You ready? Here's the first one, Ted Hall. He's 19 years old, and he gives critical information. I mean, they've got him at all kinds of various different levels. So he gives information about the Manhattan Project. Klaus Fuchs, write his name down too. We got Ted Hall, Klaus Fuchs, and I'm not even done yet. Do you see those in there? Yep. These are going to be people who will help. Some of their motivation, I mean, it's like money is going to be a prime motivation for some people. Sometimes it's like, well, to just even things out. It just doesn't seem fair. The United States has nuclear weapons. The Soviets should have that too, to keep things even. Oh, okay, fine, sure, if that's what you think. Did that spying help the Soviet Union? Arguably, yes. Now, they did put a lot of focus on science themselves, so let's give credit to the Soviet scientists. But let's also give credit to the spies for the Soviet Union. It probably helped them to get the atomic bomb 2 years quicker than maybe they would have done so on their own work. And they developed their atomic bomb, you've got it several different places in your notes, by 1949. Okay? Some of those ones got away with it, right? They got out of the United States before they were discovered. These two people, Julius and Ethel Rosenberg, did not get away with it. And the film talks quite a bit about what happened to Julius and Ethel Rosenberg. They also spied, and we've confirmed it. Opened up Soviet documents at the end of the Soviet Union and looked, and I'm like, yep, those were their spies. They were captured, they were tried, they were convicted, and, write this down, they were executed. Julius and Ethel Rosenberg, okay? They were executed. Most of the ones after that we catch, we don't execute. In fact, I think that might be the last ones, certainly in this video. We'll get our hands on some other ones, and usually, typically, like the Soviets are like, hey, can we trade for this one? Yes. We'll trade you this one for that one. This spy for that spy. Okay? Here's another thing that the Soviets try to do. You ready? They try to infiltrate our United States military, intelligence, foreign policy, and put this down as well, and our allies. They look for the weak links. And oftentimes the weak links are people who are somebody who we thought was going to work for us. All right, here's one. Right, let me see. George Blake. Do you see the agent George Blake? George Blake was a double agent. Right? He was working for the KGB. He was a Korean War prisoner of war. What happened to him while he was in prison camp? The communists got to him, and they persuaded him ultimately so that upon his release, he went to work for the communists. They basically said, look, your countries are doing terrible things and bombing innocent civilians and da-da-da-da-da, and you should do things to help us out. And he's like, okay, George Blake from Britain, a double agent. How did we find out about him? Well, we didn't find out enough time because he actually revealed to the Soviets that we had, you ready? We had a tunnel system in Berlin where we set up listening devices in East German locations to gather all kinds of intelligence. But here's the problem. The Soviets knew that we had the listening devices. How did they know? Because George Blake told them. So we thought we were being all clever. Okay? Sometimes it's going to be British people. Here is a British agent, Kim Philby. Do you see his name? He's working for the British, but he's also working for the KGB. Therefore, what do we call him? A double agent. Yep, he's going to be a problem. Okay? Let's see if we get not quite to this one yet. Oleg Penkovsky, 1950s. Oleg Penkovsky, I mentioned to you about him before. Oleg Penkovsky, let's give a lot of credit to Oleg Penkovsky. He ultimately is going to help the United States out. He's in the Red Army. He is a top-level military person in the Red Army. He comes to work providing information and intelligence to the United States. Do you remember that time I told you when the United States took some pictures of some curious military installations in Cuba, and they were trying to figure out what the heck was going on? Do you know who provided very helpful intelligence information as to, oh, yeah, I see those pictures. Those are nuclear missile installations. Who provided that critical, timely information to the United States intelligence? It was Oleg Penkovsky. Okay? Oleg Penkovsky. Sometimes, and particularly with the Soviets, they would try to recruit people and just basically say, just wait. What is it called when you're recruited and you live a normal life and nobody knows that you're a spy? You're just kind of like chilling out and doing your thing, just in a normal job. You know? It's not always like people like working in intelligence and military who are the spies. You could have just some average person who is a spy until that time when they're supposed to act. It's like wait for the code. Dee-dee-dee-dee-dee-dee. The code is given, and now they act. It's called deep cover. Somebody could be like a high school student, looking very normal to all kinds of observations, getting ready to go to college at some place, I don't know, back east or something like that. But in fact, they've been, are you pointing fingers? Somebody could be like a successful like volleyball high school athlete or something like that, but in fact be co-opted by the Soviet Union. No, say it ain't so, right? Deep cover, the secret life. Sometimes, here's the thing that was a real problem for folks. Sometimes the Soviets would try to basically get their agents to have a nice, personal, intimate relationship with U.S. or British or French personnel. Yeah. Here was one of the potential weak spots. The United States has an embassy in the Soviet Union, right in Moscow. And we have Marine Guards. Who do you suppose the Soviets would try to get to infiltrate the Marine Guards so that the Marine Guards, in having some close conversations, so-called pillow talk, would inadvertently reveal information that was critical to these young female Soviet agents? That was a problem. So, I mean, if you're going to be in those highly sensitive positions, you needed to make sure that the relationships you were having with people were not actually Soviet spies. Because some of the people who were Soviet spies in your own country. Take a look here. That's Christine Keeler. She is a British woman. She's having her photograph taken there. She's 19 years old. Could she be a spy for the Soviet Union? Who would she try to form an intimate relationship and as a result of that pillow talk provide the Soviets with helpful information? As it turns out, in the 1960s, Christine Keeler ended up having an intimate relationship with John Profumo, Secretary of War for the British. Oops. That was not good for the British and the United States, and that was ultimately discovered. She was discovered to be a Soviet spy. You think so? Yeah. I mean, it's like, what the heck are you trying to do? You still have these kinds of things take place. Even in modern times, if you'd like to Google, like, it's like, the Cold War is over. Is spying over? No, spying is not over. Spying is continuing in a big, big way. There are still spies out there, working for the Chinese, working for the Russians, working for the Americans, working for our own allies. Do we spy on our own allies? Yes, we do. Do they spy on us? Yes. Why do we have really strict rules like, please, all of your highly secure intelligence information, don't use a regular computer server to like email those back and forth? I mean, that was one of the reasons that there was concern about Secretary of State Hillary Clinton's thing, is because those were handled on like a server in her private residence in Chappaqua, New York. Those were concerns. Yes, your question. Espionage means spying. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, espionage. If you are into espionage, you're into spying. And there's different kinds of espionage because, of course, there's like personal this. You know, she was trying to get kind of like pillow talk and so forth. And I don't know, maybe like co-opt him and get him to like reveal or hand things over. At the very least, you know, things it's like, honey, what did you do at work today? Oh, tell me about so-and-so. I mean, all of that's very important. Oh, who was that? Oh, who was that? No relation. Anyway, let's talk about Dmitry Polyakov. Okay? Dmitry Polyakov is a Soviet general. And you'll see in the video about Dmitry Polyakov. We were really, really, really concerned because we had Dmitry Polyakov, and you'll see him at the very beginning of the movie. He's provided all kinds of important information for the United States CIA over many, 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 many years. And ultimately, we lose him. And we're losing other spies. Oh my gosh. Polyakov, arrested in 1986 and executed in 1988. I mean, we trade their spies back. They generally kill them off. Right? Penkovsky, I believe, is also killed. Yes, he is killed by the Soviets. Polyakov is killed by the Soviets. We got a problem. Anybody guys know the name? What is it called if the KGB have somebody working within our intelligence systems, providing the KGB, the Soviets, with the names of our operatives so that now they're getting caught because we're losing all these people? What do you call somebody who is in an organization that's providing information outside? Think of it as a little critter that crawls under the ground. A mole. The word is a mole. The Soviets had a mole. And there's this big effort to figure out who the mole was. Do you want to know who the mole was? It was a CIA agent. His name was Aldrich Ames. He will be arrested in 1994. And it actually doesn't take too much to figure out that it was him because he and his wife had been spending tons and tons of money. They had like $2.7 million that they had received from the Soviets. And here's the deal. If you're working on a government salary and you're spending like you got some money coming in on the side, it's going to come up. And ultimately, they were captured. Okay? They were captured. He was responsible for giving the names to the Soviets of 11 people, or 12 people. 10 of them executed, 1 committed suicide, only 1 of them managed to escape. And you're going to hear him being interviewed. He's in prison, but he's responsible for the death of agents for the United States, including Polyakov. He gets a life sentence. Ames gets a life sentence. He's not executed like the Rosenbergs were. Okay? There was another guy. This one isn't in the video. I put his name in there because when this came out, people are like, oh, is he related to you? No, he's got 2 S's. He's not related to me. He's a spy. He worked for the United States. He was arrested in 2001, and and now he is in prison. He did it for the money. He did it for the money. Right? So, there's the spies. We got all the details and information on that. We'll put up for you guys to watch then before you come back the next time around, or maybe the time after that, the 2 videos, one on detente and the other on the spies. Okay? Good. Enjoy the election day. Hopefully everything will be dandy, and everyone will manage to get their ballots